Are you planning to get the Batcycle? Do you have the Batcycle? What do you say we trick out the Batcycle with some lights? Let's take a look. So we're going to start off our parts list with the obvious. We're going to need the Batcycle from the movie. And we definitely are going to need 2 micro LEDs and 2 mini LEDs, each with their corresponding board. And we need a dual coin cell holder, plus a multi-effects board for the effects we need. Comencemos con lo más obvio. Necesitamos la motocicleta que aparece en la película. Y necesitamos 2 sets de LEDs, 2 micro y 2 nano. Cada uno con su tablero correspondiente. Y un tablero para los efectos que estaremos usando en el escape. Claro, una pila 2032 que necesitamos para que funcione toda la iluminación. Comenzamos. Disassembly for this vehicle was incredibly difficult. Now, if you're not planning to add in any kind of lighting, then you don't need to disassemble it. You can leave it as is and do whatever painting you want. If you want to go very light on the lighting, which is just the headlamp and the tail light, you don't need to disassemble the motorcycle. You can just take off the tank and the seat and run your wiring through there. But if you want an internal battery, you will have to disassemble the motorcycle. Now, for video purposes, I have already done all of the assembling and disassembling. I will now show you what it is I did so that the video is not extremely long. It is extremely difficult to take this motorcycle apart, particularly because there are 3 hidden screws underneath the seat and tank, and those are holding the top of the chassis together. There are 6 more screws that hold the vehicle together, 3 on the steering, and there's 3 down at the bottom of the chassis, and there's 1 in front. There's a crossbar. Now, all of the plastic on here, although it appears sturdy, it's actually very, very soft. And you can just heat it up, remove the piece to one side, and use your screwdriver to get to those particular screws. Once you have loosened all of the screws, you are now going to reapply heat, particularly to this. This is the internal, I guess it's the turbo exhaust, but this is held on by glue to these manifolds on each side. You have to remove those if you're gonna add lighting to that turbo exhaust, and you're gonna have to drill into the turbo exhaust from the exhaust ports to be able to do the wiring. Now, be careful, because that turbo exhaust on the far right underneath my hand is the actual tail lamp. That framework on there is fragile. I broke mine, I had to fix it. So just a word of caution, it is fragile. As you can see, it sits into a square peg, into a round port that is on the back. And inside, holding the engine together, are 2 large pegs on the inside, one at the top, one at the bottom. Now, this is the port that I had to cut to be able to put in my internal battery. I was not able to separate this engine apart because I can't get heat to it. I can put water in there, but it's not enough to do it. And it can distort your plastic. So my best option was to leave it as is, drill into it, cut away what I needed, and then cut that peg on the inside on the bottom to fit my battery and all of my components. The steering on the forks is held by 3 screws. Very simple. You just remove those and the entire fork with the wheel comes out. You don't have to remove the forks off of the wheel to do any painting. Now that you have the entire piece separated, you can split it open and work on the inside. You don't have to remove the rear wheel because there's no need to. If you wanted to, yes, you could. However, because it is soft plastic, it is very easy to damage the plastic as you're moving it. It's not like the other cycles, which was sturdier. You can actually pull it apart. This is different. So now that you have one half to work on, you can work on the engine, do your painting, do your wiring, and then set it inside and bring the other half on top of it to close it off. So this is where it now becomes easier. Now that it's like this, the wiring is going to be easier. You can either wire it underneath the chassis or underneath the seat and the actual gas tank. The headlamp itself is comprised of a 1/10 scale lens for an RC car, and it obviously comes as a set, so you have two lenses. You can work on two cycles. The inside LED is affixed with the UV resin, and here's the board that it hooks up to. And then this is the actual battery case that I will be using. It holds two 2032s, and this is enough power to run these 4 cells. One 2032 is not enough to run those 4 cells, so I had to use this larger carrier for those 2 batteries. Now, as you can see here on the right, that is our tail lamp. You will have to drill it out and fill it in with a colored resin, in this case red resin, to create that red lens. You can either do a casting of it before, or you can fill it once you cut it out. Regardless, make sure you make a test of your lighting before you install all of the parts back together. The multi-effects board that we're going to use is made by Brixmax. You can get this off of Amazon. It runs you $14, and it does have a potentiometer. It has 3 settings for 3 different effects. There's a pulsing, there's a flickering, and there's a rapid fire. Choose the one that is best for your needs. I chose the flicker, and with that potentiometer I can control how quick I want it to flicker and how the sequence is by just turning that potentiometer to the desired speed that I needed, which is what you saw at the beginning of the video, and you'll see that again in just a moment. These are the mini or the micro LEDs that are inside the exhaust. You have to perforate those exhaust tips and come in from the inside with the LED itself to be able to set them in place. Because the LEDs have a quick connect on the end, you cannot push them through. You have to put them in from the inside. Once you set them in place with some UV resin, you're set to go. Put some tape on the leads so that they don't slide back out or you don't damage them. They are very, very fragile. And then wait for the moment to reinstall them. Now, even though I'm showing you the effects that the board has, I want you to take a look at that triangular shape that is at the top of those 2 LEDs. That's your tail light, and you see those 2 pegs off to the right and left? Those 2 pegs insert underneath the chassis to hold it in place. Remember, this part of the exhaust is fragile, and if you force it, you are going to break it, because I certainly did, and I had to repair it. So I'm keeping this video short because I know not everybody's going to be disassembling their bikes, and we're just going to paint it. So we'll get right into painting. I didn't do a lot of detail painting because it's already well done. What I did add is add a little bit of dust and dirt to make it look like it's actually been ridden and worn. And to me, it just gave it that much more life to the actual cycle. So you spin the wheel, you take your airbrush, load it up with some light brown paint, and then spray the wheel as it's turning. Do that for both sides and also for the rear. You spray at an angle, and it's going to give you that realistic look as it's actually been ridden. Now if you look closely where my fingers are, that is the compartment I had to cut out to insert the batteries. And yes, there's a micro switch on that battery compartment so that I can turn it on and off. So I decided to put the compartment in the rear so that it's less visible. However, because it is internal and not visible, it is a real pain to get into to change out batteries. So keep in mind that you will have to restock on your batteries. They're only going to last you about 15 hours, but it's going to be difficult to get those in and out. That's one of the reasons why I prefer the USB. In this case, I wanted it to be totally mobile, and I did want to go outside my comfort zone. So in this clip here, you're getting a very close look at those exhaust manifolds for that turbo, and those are very soft plastic. When it's cool, it's actually hard, but when you heat it up, they turn gooey like a gummy, and you pull those with your pliers, you're gonna have to be extremely careful not to tear them. On one side they came out just fine. On the other side, I ended up tearing one. I had to repair that. So be very careful if you plan to remove those pieces. So let's do a quick recap on the parts list. We actually need that motorcycle. We're going to need some LEDs, both the micro LEDs with their own board and the mini LEDs with their own board, and a dual coin cell, which is the 2032. And of course, we need a multi-effects board for that light. Damos un breve repaso de lo que se necesita. Necesitamos el Batcycle que aparece en la película. Y necesitamos luces LEDs, 2 micro y 2 nano, cada uno con su tablero respectivo, y un tablero para los efectos que vemos aquí en azul. Y claro, necesitamos 2 pilas 2032 para hacer funcionar la iluminación. Keep in mind that every artist's rendition will vary. This is only my take on this. Yours can totally change from this, or you may want it to look the same. That's going to require a lot of involved time. In the meanwhile, I'll leave you with the video showing the finished product. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.